Good evening. This is John Bailey, and this is People to Be Heard, the program where people who have something to say have their say. And I'm with Jim Benerofe, and tonight we have Bill Mooney, White Plains resident and the executive director of the Westchester County Association. And thank you for coming on the program.
John, nice to be with you again.
Right.
Okay, Jim, as usual, good to see you.
Right. And you are here to talk about Gigabit Westchester.
Yes.
Yeah. Jim, why don't you start off the
All
question?
right, Gigabit Westchester is a combination of four cities in Westchester. Can you tell us a little bit about exactly what gigabit or broadband is?
Sure. Gigabit, by the way, is nothing more than high-speed internet service. And to give you an idea of what a gigabit is, for example, as opposed to what people traditionally have in their homes right now, the average home probably has anywhere from 10 to 50 megabits. And what that means is that if the traditional home, if they want to download a movie over the weekend or whenever, and you have multiple users in a house, they could take you up to an hour, 2 hours to download a movie, as we all know. Gigabit, by the way, which is 1,000 megabits. So think about what I said before, 20 to 50 megabits. Now we're talking about 1,000 megabits, which is a gigabit, and it would take 2 to 4 seconds to download that same movie. So the speed and capacity is much more dramatic than the traditional service that we're all used to.
Now, when you provide this broadband service, is that actual wiring that goes underground?
It could be two ways. For example, we currently have an infrastructure where, as we all know, in the four cities, where Fios, Optimum, whoever the providers are there, and that's fiber that's under the ground. Now, in the last couple of years, people are talking about wireless. And so as we unfold this whole process, we will probably have to investigate, do we do it with the current infrastructure? That might be less costly, or do we do it wireless? That's something that's unknown at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll have a lot of technical people help us with that process as we go along.
Now, we are talking, of course, about the effort announced October the 6th,
Yeah.
whereby four cities, White Plains, New Rochelle, Mount Vernon, and Yonkers,
Yonkers.
are combining their
Resources.
offering
Yeah.
to attract investors.
Right.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and I think that's such a good point, John. This is the first of the kind in its nation. Traditionally, if you look around, by the way, there's roughly 50 cities that have in the process of implementing gigabit, and I don't know how many already have it. It's probably around 10 or 12 or so. This is the first of its kind where you have multiple cities coming together. And think about what that means for our community. If we always talk about why don't our cities, why don't our towns and villages, why don't they consolidate, why don't they do this and get together?
The C word.
Exactly, and so they're doing it this time. And that's great, because we'll be able to leverage this whole process and hopefully the efficiencies of four cities together. And I think we're talking about a population of somewhere around well over 400,000 people. I think from a provider viewpoint, that's a market that will create attractiveness to them.
What convinced the cities to go along as a team?
As a team, that's a great question. I think we spent a lot of time, first of all, the Westchester County Association has spent over the years a lot of time working with the cities. And we've always been talking about how do we leverage the cities, how do we put them together, and maybe in this case we talked about how do we brand ourselves as a region, and as opposed to individual competitiveness. And so that was one of the issues. The other issue is that we thought it would be attractive just simply putting together four cities. We worked with them, talked about the advantages, modernizing our infrastructure, creating something for our citizens that would be unique, and thirdly, maybe having some real cost efficiencies for the citizens. But doing it all together would be much better than doing it individually.
Right. Now, in the press conference, you talked about attracting more businesses
Yes.
to the region.
Yeah.
Because, like, as Chattanooga and cities down
Yeah.
south have done. Now, to my way of thinking, how does the broadband availability here outweigh our tax structure here and our expenses?
Outweigh meaning?
Outweigh, what is the advantage?
I think what the advantage, first of all, we need more revenues. Everybody knows that. The county has no revenues. The only way they produce revenues now is what? They tax us. We have not had an influx of business, as we all know, in recent years. White Plains has done reasonably well. Some of the cities have done okay. But we need to attract more revenues. We need companies to be coming in here. That's what high-speed internet does. If you look at what's taking place in Chattanooga, I think both of you have seen the video that we produced, and
Yes.
the unemployment has gone from 7% down to 4%, which is quite substantial in a city like
Slice it in
Chattanooga.
half.
Yeah, exactly. And so companies are attracted to that area now because there's, especially entrepreneurs, and in today's innovative economy, you want to attract entrepreneurs, you want to attract mid-sized companies, you want to attract small business companies. If they can get a more cost-efficient way of communicating, meaning high-speed internet, and they can get affordable places to live, that's a pretty good attraction for creating new revenues and creating new businesses in the community.
Now, once we've acquired this service, okay, what specifically, for instance, what would a city do specifically? I'm talking about the actual, whether it does their taxes, or what exactly does it do?
Well, I think, Jim, what it does is, let's go back. First of all, it modernizes our infrastructure, and that's an important element. And in other words, people think of infrastructure traditionally as we better modernize our roads, we better modernize our bridges and things like that. Guess what? We all know how internet is playing a major role in our lives. That has become a new infrastructure project, right? So I think that what's really critically important is that we get up to speed to compete on a national level with some of the cities that are already doing this throughout the country. Now, once you do that, once you put in the pipes, if you do the fiber, or we do it wireless, as we see around the country, and John, you've seen this in the video, what happens? People, especially the entrepreneurs and the innovative economies, and also the big companies, they want to migrate to a place where they're going to get cost efficiencies. They want to migrate to a place where there's an innovative economy. They want to migrate to a place that has decent housing, which we have, and we have a great educational system here. So that's the kind of things it'll do for us. Equally as important, I want to get this in because it's important. It doesn't really go to your question, but it creates what I call social equity in the community. And to me, that's a huge issue. And what I mean by that is, right now we have in our traditional society and on internet, in different communities, we have people who can't afford Fios. We have people who can't afford Optimum, or whatever the provider is.
$180 a month for
It's a lot of money.
cable.
Right. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So think about all these kids right now who are underserved in our community, who can't afford this. And so when they go home at night and they try to do their homework, they're at a complete disadvantage. To me, what this does, it creates a social equity. It creates getting away from the digital divide that we currently have now. Let's call it the digital divide, for lack of another way to call it something. And these kids now are going to get the privilege, if you will, of having high-speed internet, and they can compete with anybody else. If we can do that, if we just did that alone, I'd be extraordinarily proud.
Yeah. Now, since the press conference in early October, we're talking with Bill Mooney, Executive Director of the Westchester County Association, White Plains resident, and I would like to know what you hired Blair Levin.
We hired, first of all,
help.
yeah,
Yes.
John, what we did was first of all, we hired John McDonald.
Yes.
For those in the audience who don't know who Joan McDonald is, Joan McDonald was the head of the Department of Transportation in New York State. Joan was also the head of economic development in the state of Connecticut, and she was also on the Obama Infrastructure Committee.
Okay.
So she has great credentials for a project like this.
Good
And,
overview.
she has a tremendous overview and a great view of infrastructure, I might add. And then Blair Levin has recently agreed to help us in this whole process. Blair is a member of the Brookings Institute. He worked for the Obama team. His specialty was broadband, by the way, and high-speed internet. If you look it up, you'll see, Google Blair Levin, you'll see that Blair Levin was a guy who wrote the handbook for high-speed internet. And he's helped cities like Chattanooga, Austin, Texas, and others, Cleveland, Cincinnati, with this whole process.
Now, he will be conducting the survey of the 4 city needs?
Yeah, he'll be part of the process and advising us. Joan will be the, fundamentally our strategic advisor and, in effect, really the project manager for this thing. We'll be announcing, by the way, probably sometime next week. We already have it pretty much in place. I remember at the press conference you asked me that one. How soon will we get the project team in place? We've actually already had a meeting. This is the first time I'm talking about this publicly, by the way. And
That's why you're being heard.
and the CIOs, Chief Information Officers of all the cities have already participated in a meeting with us, led by Joan McDonald. We're in the process of negotiating with one more person, and then we'll have the formality of announcing to the world the entire project team.
Right. So at the press conference, you were thinking that this would be in place in 4 years. Is that correct?
3 to 5 years. Yeah.
3 to 5.
Yeah, so
okay.
4 is a happy medium.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long will it take for the survey of the individual city needs to take place, do you think?
I think that's, I'm going to say it'll take 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
I think that I want to try, that's a real good question, by the way. What we're going to try and do is really do a great outreach into the communities. This cuts across all social issues, in my judgment. We want to make sure that all the community groups, the business groups, the educational groups, the not-for-profit groups are involved in this process. This is not, I don't look at this as a Westchester County Association project. I look at this as a community project. And to me, it's probably one of the largest transformations that's ever going to take place in Westchester County.
Now, what will be the county executive's role with the
Well,
with this? Because
yeah.
he is in Robert Astorino, county executive.
Sure.
Big development-oriented person. He
Yep.
has brought in
The
Regina.
county has been very supportive of this,
Yes,
John, very supportive of it. Keep in mind, the reason we did this with the cities is because the cities have the franchise agreements.
Mhm.
The county does not have the franchise agreements with the providers.
Okay.
That's a critical
Important
point.
point.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
important point. And so that's the reason. Otherwise, I'm sure the county would have been involved. The negotiations of once we implement this will take place with the cities and the providers.
I see.
And the providers being the companies like FiOS and.
Yeah, Verizon, whoever they are.
Now, if you do wireless, will they build towers for that, or will they use,
I
could
don't
they
know the
use cell
answer.
phone
I don't know
towers?
the answer to that. I think of Blair 11, we'll be having a meeting with Blair 11 in the very near future, November 10th. And if I were you guys, I'd come to that meeting, and you can be my guest at that meeting, and you can ask them that question.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah.
Jim?
Well, how much, do you have I mean, I know you don't have any exact figures, but do you have a rough idea of what this whole thing is gonna cost?
Yeah, well, based on
Get it.
Chattanooga, as we said at the press conference, the city of Chattanooga costs somewhere in the vicinity of about $300+ million. We think, as we did the analysis of this and the evaluation currently, the whole project from a capital viewpoint will be somewhere in the vicinity of about $750 million. Now, having said that, in Westchester County, the infrastructure for the fiber is already there. So it may cost less, I'm not sure of that though, I wouldn't wanna say that. But our best estimate at this point in time, which I'm sure will change as we get into the more technical aspects of it, is about $750 million.
Now, will there be any way of this specifically producing revenue? In other words, do you have a charge for use kind of thing like you do with?
Oh, yes. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you'll be paying in the same way that you pay for your current internet service, with whoever the provider is that's selected by this. Now, having said that, we're finding out in the places that have implemented this that the service is probably cheaper, and we'll be able to leverage the 4 cities. And we believe at this point in time, because we're putting the 4 cities together, that we will get a better price than currently what it is.
And our cable bills will
Should go down.
disappear.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly.
I don't know if they're gonna disappear, but.
That would be nice.
But I think also there'll be a lot of social issues here, and what do I mean by that? I think we will, this is something that will be played a little bit differently than the way it's played today. We think we'll be putting the high-speed internet and gigabit into libraries, putting it into community places, putting in places where senior citizens can have access to it. So creating more access for people is part of the game plan here.
Mhm. Jim?
What exactly will cities do with it? In other words, what services will they be able to enhance?
Well, I think different sectors will have different thought processes on that. What do I mean by that? For example, in terms of municipal services, it will clearly impact first responders. That's for sure. It will clearly help municipal services. If you look at Chattanooga, which I know you've done, John, you see a reduction of roughly 10% in the cost elements. And so, you know, a question I would ask Tom Roach and I would ask the mayors, you know, what they think of that. What is it going to mean to them? Then think about what we said earlier about the high-speed internet, and think about healthcare. What does it mean to healthcare? And then you start thinking about robotic surgery.
Yes.
And you start thinking about
Faster
diagnostic.
transfer of data.
Transfer
Much
of data,
faster.
much faster. We witnessed, I know, John, you saw the video, we witnessed an operation that was taking place in Chattanooga, and the surgeon was in Sacramento, California. And this was done because of the high-speed internet. If you didn't have the high-speed internet, you wouldn't be able to do that. And exactly, as you know, John, it saved that person's life. And I think when we look at the healthcare sector, and we see what's taking place with the healthcare sector in terms of the ambulatory services now, we want to keep people more in the home. So with telemedicine, that's going to have a tremendous impact on telemedicine.
Mhm. Now,
And it'll be cheaper for all of us,
right.
once again.
Speaking of cheaper, how is this going to be financed?
How's it going to be financed? I think, at the moment, the current thinking is as follows. There's 2 fundamental ways that you finance this, as we've seen in the other cities. One is through federal grants and state grants. And that won't be the larger part. The providers will finance most of it, because who's going to get the benefit of the revenue stream? And now we say to ourselves, $750 million.
Providers like a Verizon or the AT&T, whomever.
Sure,
Yes.
exactly. So if I'm a taxpayer and I'm listening to what I'm saying, the taxpayers might say, oh my God, here they go again. They're going to raise our taxes to pay for this. No, not true. What's going to happen is the providers will be paying for this because they get the opportunity of getting great revenues.
That's looking more and more feasible.
Exactly.
That they
exactly.
pay, and we basically get it free.
And then, so what will happen, I think, is over time, the providers will want to be in this game. And I want to add on to that, we will probably have more choices of providers as we go through this process.
Mm-hmm.
We will probably be bringing in people from other parts of the country to talk to and see what they think of this process. So the more competition we have for providers, the better it's going to be for our community.
Yes, it's great to see competition being
So
championed.
Right.
we will be able to eliminate cable services once this is in place?
Well, it'd be fundamentally the
That's
same.
an
because
excellent question.
I mean, if a great way to look at this is you will have cable service the same way you have it now, only with much more capacity, and at the end of the day, we hope a lot cheaper.
Mhm. Now, Greenberg wants to get in on this deal that the other four cities have made. Where is that headed?
Well, everybody wants to get involved, by the way.
I
I
see.
mean, if you're looking at this from the outside, you say, you know, how will I get involved in this thing?
Mhm.
Because it's gonna be better municipal services, it's gonna be more revenues, or cheaper rather. And I think the way we're starting, like any good management would think about a project of this magnitude. If you start off and you say, we're gonna do it for all Westchester, probably not a smart thing to do. So you start
Otherwise,
off.
you'll have to do Pound Ridge first.
Right, right,
Yeah.
or at the same
Wouldn't want
time.
that.
Well, the point is that you wanna do the pilot of, and get as much facts as you possibly can. Make sure everything is achievable, make sure that our rhetoric is backed up by the technical capabilities. And then we'll evaluate, we'll have careful evaluations.
Mhm.
Greenberg will certainly be included.
I see. Now, how about the situation of making the final decision? Will it be a committee decision? Will Mr.
About what?
Levin, about how it actually is done?
I think that'll, in my judgment,
Yeah.
that'll be threefold kinds of, you're gonna have the project committee, which will be helping the community make the decision. In my judgment, the community should make this decision.
Mhm.
This is not my decision, it's not the project committee. My role, as I look at it, is to help the community make a major decision once we're ready to make a decision.
Well,
And that'll be done through the mayors, that'll be
Yes.
done through
I
the
see.
cities,
or the common councils,
Common
such
councils,
as they may be.
yes,
Right.
and their representatives,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you're seeing this as cities in complete control of picking the various,
Absolutely,
the provider or
absolutely,
the
yeah,
provider
absolutely.
orders.
Once again, I can't emphasize enough that we are a facilitator, we are a convener in this process. The decision is up to the community.
Mhm. What additional incentives besides broadband might be offered to corporations willing to relocate into the pilot cities?
That, I think, is up to the individual cities. You know, if Company X wants to go into Yonkers, I think that'll be a decision Yonkers will make.
Mhm. Do you feel that it'll be a one price fits all or do you think various cities will get a better price than
No.
the other three?
I think it'll be one price fits all, and that's the whole purpose,
I see.
John, of
One price,
leveraging all the
that's it.
cities.
Mhm.
That's the purpose.
It would seem that the cities would have to work with the county, as they do now with the county IDEA, to put together packages stressing this broadband advantage to attract corporations and also look at their real estate availability.
From the economic development
Yes,
side, that's true,
yes.
yeah.
Will this be overseen by the Public Service Commission or anything like that?
I'm sure it will be.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will be. I'm sure they'll have a say in this. I think like any other public infrastructure, the oversight will come with the traditional overseers, meaning the Federal Trade Commission, the state commissions, and I'm sure there's some local ones that I'm not aware of that'll be involved. This is like any other infrastructure. You will have, people tend to think of infrastructure as bridges, as we said earlier, or roads and things like that. This is one that you won't see the actual infrastructure, but you'll get the benefits of it.
Now, how does this affect the local consumer? And how is broadband provided now? Because there is some broadband service.
Sure. I mean, right now, as we said earlier, if you have the traditional broadband, which is what, 20 to 50 megabits, maybe, or maybe down to 10 megabits, you on a Sunday, you want to watch the football game, and your wife wants to do something else, and on the TV.
She always wants to do something else.
And so what happens, it takes a long time to download a movie or whatever the case may be. Then your kids wanna do something else and play games in the other TV, the service will be a lot faster. You'll be able to download, as we suggested earlier, instead of waiting an hour and a half, your downloading time might be anywhere from 2 to 5 seconds, and hopefully it's a lot cheaper.
But in this very building, you also purchase, if you want the broadband speed, you purchase it from the provider
Right,
or the
right,
building,
right.
who charges it back to the individual
Exactly.
renters in the
That's right,
building.
yeah.
Right. So do you see that changing at all? And the city's handling it? Or is
I
it
think so,
rec-
yeah, I think the
So
cities,
it's-
yeah. I mean, that's
Oh.
that's what I think, but we'll see how that plays out.
Hence the revenue. Right.
It's all about the revenue.
It's all about the revenue.
You were talking a lot about telemedicine.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about that, and maybe this is not so much, maybe this is more of a medical question, but will things like, for instance, would a doctor be able to give a patient a physical in their home?
I would think so, yeah, I mean, I would think so.
So
I mean,
you won't
I
have to
don't
go
know
out-
if they can complete the physical, but they might be able to do certain diagnostic issues as it relates to a physical, yeah. I mean, I think, and what is that gonna mean, by the way? It's gonna be, hopefully, it makes healthcare a lot more efficient. And
Faster.
faster,
Mm.
more capacity. If you look at, if you talk to, and I would urge you to do this, I would urge you to talk to, Montefiore, for example, and their affiliates, and get an idea of what they think this is all about. And they're much more expert on this subject than I am as it relates to their own field.
Jim?
But they're very excited about this, Jim, very excited about it.
All right, so what can we expect in the next phase of this?
I think the next phase will be a couple of things. The project team is just about fully assembled at this point in time. They'll begin their a process of evaluation. Evaluation meaning we'll start the process of talking to the providers.
Mhm.
And then simultaneously, hopefully what will happen is that we'll be talking to people in the community and get their input.
Well, Bill Mooney, Executive Director of the Westchester County Association, mastermind of Gigabit Westchester, you have been heard. Thank you for being with us. John Bailey, Jim Benerofe. Good night.
Thanks for the privilege, John.
Right. Good night for people to be heard.